Hi, today we're going to be talking about assessment and feedback strategies in online environments. So first of all, throughout this class we have been learning about education and how we can benefit from going online for all sorts of purposes related to education and teaching. Some of the benefits for online education are global knowledge. When we have access to online education, students are exposed to knowledge shared by the instructors around the globe, which cannot be learned in books and sometimes can also be limited when you are in a physical classroom. You also have accessibility. Online courses and that material can be accessed 24/7 every day, each day, throughout the year. Besides, it's also flexible. That means that the student can attend classes and courses anywhere, as long as they have a computer and internet connection. Not only that, but students can control study time. That means that they can break up their study time throughout the day in different sections. They don't have to sit down for a specific time in a way that they can take a break and maybe do something else while they are studying and break that up throughout the day. It also gives chance for interaction. Online courses may be less intimidating than a traditional classroom setting, and that can help to increase student interaction. Besides, there are many tools, some of which we have studied throughout this class, that allows students to collaborate with one another no matter where they are or when they can access that. It's also cost effective. It's much more cheaper to use this type of education for assessment because it's usually free, it's open, and it can cut down on additional costs for transportation, accommodation, and even supplies. It's also a better opportunity for students who can have this ability to choose from various schools and courses. They are not limited by geography, and they can choose to study wherever they want, whatever they want. It's also more student-centered. That means that every student has his or her way of learning and it works for them, and they can apply it for online education. Now let's talk about the difference between assessment and feedback. Usually both of these words are used interchangeably. However, they are different and they are not the same. When we talk about assessment, we're basically talking about the way in which we can grade or score or maybe quantify learning. We can do this by maybe analyzing, testing, evaluating, and we usually get a result that most of the times is going to be numerical. An example of assessment can be, for example, the tests or quizzes that students have to do throughout the year, or maybe the final exam or the midterm exam. These are some types of assessment. On the other hand, feedback refers to the specific instructions or the specific comments that the teacher is going to give students about their learning process so that they can improve. It's usually very oriented towards goal, and it has as its main purpose to help students to achieve the desired outcomes and results. So in that way we can say that assessment is usually a more formal process, more numerical, while feedback has to go hand in hand with assessment in order to ensure that students are going to be improving and not stagnating on something that maybe it's going to be difficult for them and something that they will be needing help with. So, what is the role of assessment in online learning? Online learning is great, especially in terms of assessment, and online assessment in specific is a great e-learning tool. The reason for that is that it's cost effective, as we mentioned before. It's accessible anytime, anywhere, but it's also fun, creative, and interactive. Here we can talk about the different ways in which teachers can assess students online that it's not possible or it's more difficult to do in a physical class. Some of those examples that are fun, creative, and interactive can be, for example, using online platforms, online websites like forums, like Kahoot, quizzes, like a Padlet. All of these places are those that are designed for students to interact, and that can also be fun and help students to express and share their thoughts and ideas. It's also easily accessible for all candidates. As long as they have internet connection, a tablet, laptop, or a mobile phone, they can access the content. It also encourages collaboration, as we have mentioned before. They can work online and share with one another. It's also quick for marking and results, especially in platforms like Moodle, LMS platforms. It's very easy to generate a rubric that is going to help teachers to have very fast results in terms of marking and scores. It's easily scalable, and finally, it's also an exciting high-tech tool for tech-savvy generation. Let's talk about the types of assessment. When we talk about assessment, we usually have summative and also formative assessment. For the summative assessment, that's going to be mostly related to grades and reports. For example, the end of unit quarter, year standardized testing, and report cards. So we get these results by applying tests and exams. But we also have formative assessment, which is supposed to happen throughout the school year or the teaching period. This can be a screening, diagnostic, it can be a progress monitoring, such as progress monitoring for intervention, or even informal assessments. These are activities that are going to help the teacher know how the student is doing, and it's also going to help the student to practice and apply what they are learning. They can be graded sometimes, or they can be just for participation points. It's going to depend on what the teacher decides. So, for example, the diagnostic test is usually a comprehensive assessment at the beginning of an intervention period that it does not yield any sort of score on student performance. Same with the screening. What about progress monitoring for intervention? In this case, that would be something that is consistent and regular assessments that are going to track growth in a specific skill. Some students are going to need this type of monitoring when they are studying, and it's going to be up for the teacher or the school to decide if this is going to be appropriate to apply or have the student use. Let's talk about the assessment strategies that we have. For this, we can have a lot of different assessment strategies, such as quizzes, discussion boards, peer reviews, reflective journals, peer assessment, or self-assessment. In the case of quizzes, that is the most common activity that most teachers and students know. But there are also other activities, such as discussion boards or forums where students can share their ideas, they can comment on other students, and also engage in active and creative conversations related to what they are learning. They can have peer reviews in which they're going to be working with their classmates in order to review, to enhance, or to assess each other. They can also do reflective journals. This can be, for example, a blog where they have to upload a certain type of information on a regular basis, sort of like a diary, or maybe like a journal where they keep the information that they are learning or their questions. It can be very creative for the teacher and student to think about ways to include reflective journals on their learning process. Same with peer assessment and self-assessment, which is also very good when you are working with online tools, as students are going to be able to assess themselves and be able to know if they are lacking in a certain aspect, if they need to improve, or if they have mastered all the skills and abilities that they were supposed to. Of course, there are going to be some challenges that teachers must overcome for this type of modality. First of all, the internet. Sometimes when there is not a stable internet connection, this can affect how students are able to access all the content, and of course it's going to affect the feedback that they can get and the assessment that they can get. It also needs to be made sure by the teacher that the assessment that he's using is going to be reliable. That means that he needs to know exactly why he's doing that assessment, what are the results that he expects, and if he's using the right tools in order to assess. That can be referred to like a rubric or maybe a different type of assessment method. Sometimes teachers or students can lack technological skills, which is going to affect how they use and interact those tools. If they do not have a lot of experience or they don't have a lot of exposure to technological tools, maybe they will be lacking in this area. Of course, academic dishonesty is going to be one of the biggest concerns for us as educators, when students will be able to maybe cheat or copy because they are working from home and they have access to other tools. And of course, engagement. Some students will find it hard or more challenging to be able to engage online as opposed to in a physical classroom. Of course, that's going to depend a lot on the content that is being provided and on the specific personality of each student. So regarding feedback, how should feedback be? It should be educative in nature. It should also be given in a timely manner, because feedback is supposed to help the student correct and improve on what they are doing. It's not really useful if the teacher provides this feedback let's say at the end of the year, as opposed to after the test or maybe a few days or 1 week after the test. That is going to give the student guidelines about how to improve or what are the areas where he or she is not doing great. It also needs to be sensitive to the individual needs of the students. It should reference a skill or a specific knowledge, and it's going to give feedback to keep students on target for achievement. It can be given verbally, non-verbally, or in written form, and it's going to educate students on how to give feedback to each other. It's also going to alternate due dates for the students and classes, and the students can use a notebook to keep track of that, as well as the teacher to keep track of student progress. It's important that the teacher is going to return tests, papers, or comment cards at the beginning of a class. Like I mentioned before, it has to be given in a timely manner. The keys for effective feedback are goal reference, tangible, actionable, user-friendly, timely, consistent, focused, proactive, and descriptive. Here I'm going to focus more on proactive and actionable. This means that the feedback is supposed to give the students some clues or keys on how to achieve a better result. So in that case, it's important that the teacher provides feedback such as, this was good, but you could improve this area, or remember to check the pronunciation before you film the video, or double check your writing twice before submitting to make sure that there are no punctuation mistakes. It needs to give the students a specific way or a pathway to achieve those results. Here we have an example. You can say, you did a great job with the research. However, some sources were not up to date. Remember to use sources from the last 5 years next time. This type of comment for feedback is very clear, it's actionable, and it's going to help students achieve the goals that they have established for the course or the learning period. Finally, here you are going to find some useful feedback phrases that will be good for you once you become a teacher, and you can use them in order to give feedback to your students when needed. So, to finish, the 7 principles of effective feedback are going to be goal consensus, description and appreciation, concrete and specific, constructive motives, no withholding, ownership, and timing. Regarding to no withholding, it just means that the teacher should not withhold information from the student if that information is going to help them become better students and have a better learning process, as well as ownership, which basically means that you should acknowledge the things that students have done correctly. Don't only focus on the bad things when you are giving feedback. So finally, feedback and assessment are very important. It has to be timely, specific, and actionable. It also needs to help students for continuous improvement. It's crucial for enhancing student learning and engagement in online environments. And you can use a variety of assessment methods in order to make an impact on students' life. This was the topic for today. Thank you so much.